Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Islamic Quiz. How are you today? Let's have fun and learn about Islam together. In this video, you'll have to guess the surah from a picture. You'll get 10 seconds to answer each question, so look carefully, think fast, and choose your answer before the time runs out. There are 40 questions in total. Let's see how many surahs you can guess correctly. Good luck, and let's begin. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell icon, so you never miss our upcoming quizzes. Now, let's begin. Which surah is represented by this picture? Surah Al-Baqarah. It is the longest surah in the Quran. It is named after the story of the cow mentioned in it, which was a test for the children of Israel. Guess the surah from this picture? Surah Al-Fil. It describes the event of Abraham's army who came with elephants to destroy the Kaaba, but Allah destroyed them. Which surah does this picture point to? Surah An-Naml. It mentions the story of Prophet Sulaiman and how he understood the speech of ants. Identify the surah from this picture. Surah An-Nahl. It highlights the amazing creation of bees and how they produce honey as a sign of Allah's wisdom. Which surah is this picture about? Surah Al-Ankabut. It uses the example of a spider's web to show how weak false beliefs and false reliance are. Guess the surah? Surah Al-Qamar. It mentions the miracle of the splitting of the moon as a sign for the people. Which surah is shown? Surah An-Najm. It begins with an oath by the star when it sets, emphasizing the truth of revelation. Identify the surah. Surah Ash-Shams. It talks about the sun and other signs of creation and teaches the importance of purifying the soul. Which surah? Surah Al-Layl. It describes how people choose different paths in life, some doing good and some doing wrong. Guess the surah? Surah Al-Fajr. It reminds us of the power of Allah by mentioning the dawn and the fate of past nations. Which surah? Surah Ad-Duha. It was revealed to comfort Prophet Muhammad during a difficult time and remind him of Allah's care. Identify the surah. Surah Al-Asr. It teaches that all humans are in loss except those who believe, do good deeds, and advise truth and patience. Can you identify the surah represented by this picture? Surah Al-Balad. It talks about the struggles of human life and the importance of helping others and choosing the right path. Which surah does this picture remind you of? Surah Al-Insan. It describes the creation of human beings and the rewards prepared for those who are grateful and righteous. Can you recognize the surah from this picture? Surah At-Tur. It begins with an oath by Mount Tur and reminds people about the reality of the Day of Judgment. Look carefully at this picture. Which surah could it represent? Surah An-Nahl. It is called the Light and contains guidance about modesty, purity, and good social conduct. Can you guess which surah is connected to this picture? Surah Ad-Dariyat. It mentions the winds as a sign of Allah's power and reminds people about the truth of resurrection. Which surah can you identify from this picture of an animal? Surah Al-Adiyat. It describes charging horses and then reminds humans about their ungratefulness to Allah. This picture gives you a big clue. Can you guess the surah? Surah Yunus. It refers to Prophet Yunus alayhi salam, who was swallowed by a great fish and later saved by Allah. Can you figure out which surah this picture is pointing towards? Surah Al-Kahf. It contains many important lessons and stories, including the story of Musa alayhi salam and Khizr alayhi salam. Look at the picture carefully and try to identify the surah. Surah Al-Muzammil. It gives guidance to Prophet Muhammad about night prayer, worship, and preparing for his mission. Which surah do you think is represented by this picture? Surah Al-Mudaththir. It commands Prophet Muhammad to rise, warn the people, and continue spreading the message of Islam. Can you recognize the surah from this powerful picture? Surah Al-Mulk. It emphasizes that Allah has complete control over the universe and everything belongs to Him. Here is your next picture clue. Which surah is it? Surah Al-Hadid. It mentions iron as a powerful creation of Allah and encourages believers to have faith and give charity. Can you work out the name of the surah from this picture? Surah Az-Zumar. It describes people being gathered in groups on the Day of Judgment according to their deeds. Which surah name comes to your mind when you see this picture? Surah Al-Layth Imran. It talks about the family of Imran and includes important lessons about faith, patience, and trust in Allah. Can you guess the surah by using this picture as your clue? Surah Az-Zukhruf. It mentions gold and worldly decorations to remind people that worldly wealth is temporary and not the real success. Take a look at this picture. Can you identify the surah behind it? Surah Al-Hijr. It is named after a rocky region and mentions the people of Thamud and the consequences of their rejection. This picture contains a powerful clue. Which surah are we looking for? Surah An-Nahl. It talks about the help and victory given by Allah and the spread of Islam. Can you guess the name of the surah represented by these people? Surah An-Nahl. It teaches believers to seek refuge in Allah, the Lord of all mankind, from evil whispers. Which surah do you think this picture is giving us a clue about? Surah Al-Fil. It teaches believers to seek protection in Allah from different forms of harm and evil. Can you identify the surah connected with this beautiful scene? Surah Al-Fil. It begins by seeking refuge in the Lord of the daybreak and asking Allah for protection from harm. Look at this picture and see if you can guess the correct surah. Surah Al-Masad. It describes the punishment of Abu Lahab and his wife because of their opposition to Islam. Here is another important clue. Can you name the surah? Surah Al-Masad. It mentions a rope of twisted fiber in describing the punishment of Abu Lahab's wife. Can you figure out which surah is represented by these scales? Surah Ar-Rahman. It mentions the balance and reminds us of Allah's countless blessings, perfect order, and justice. Look at this picture carefully. Which surah do you think it represents? Surah Al-Qiyamah. It describes the day of resurrection and reminds humans that they will be held accountable for their deeds. Can you recognize the surah from this picture of mankind? Surah An-Nahl. It teaches us to seek refuge in Allah, the Lord and King of mankind, from the evil of whispering shaitan. Which surah name would you choose after seeing this night scene? Surah Al-Lail. It explains how people choose different paths in life, with some choosing good and others choosing evil. Can you identify the surah from these two powerful signs of creation? Surah Ash-Shams. It begins with oaths by the sun, moon, and other signs of Allah's creation and teaches about purifying the soul. Final challenge. Can you guess the surah from this picture of time? Surah Al-Asr. It teaches that mankind is in loss except those who have faith, do good deeds, encourage truth, and remain patient. How many did you get right? Comment down below and make sure to like and subscribe. Assalamu alaikum.